Y'all know what it is.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Eggs Classics. But first, one thing. In the spirit of Thanksgiving, I wanted to take a quick minute and thank everyone who's been a part of the Eggs journey for nearly 5 years now. We couldn't do what we do without you listening and sharing and telling your friends, and we're grateful for all you do in helping this show grow each and every week. So in this holiday season and time of giving thanks, we at the show wish to wish you and yours the happiest and healthiest of times ahead. And with that, here's what we have for you this week. Today's show is a classic rewind from all the way back in October 2019. Our special guest, Tommy Breedlove, is a featured keynote speaker, author, and premier business and mindset coach. His purpose is to help those he works with to achieve what he calls a legendary life. Overcoming incarceration as a young man and working his way up the ladder at the largest financial consulting firm in the world gave him business notoriety and financial success. He was a senior partner, international practice leader, and member of the board of directors. He looked successful on the outside, but was crumbling on the inside and nearly lost everything. Tommy made the choice then and there to transform his life and follow his true calling, and he's here to tell us all about it. Please join us in an uplifting and motivational podcast with our special guest from episode 127, which originally aired October 24th, 2019, Tommy Breedlove.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, gentlemen.
How's it going?
Good, brother. Good. I'm excited to be here, man. That's a cool intro. I forgot all that about myself. So, yeah, thank you for reminding me.
Of course. I am a cool guy.
Right. Yeah, hey, look at me.
So that's awesome. Well, cool. So, yeah, let's just dig right into it, Tommy. So I know that you've got kind of a torrid past and an exciting future, but let's talk about sort of how things started for you. Where do you come from? Where are you at? And let's talk a little about your journey.
Absolutely, man. So I am from Atlanta, Georgia. Actually, one of the few people who is born and raised here. That's like a Bengal tiger because it seems like everybody from Atlanta is from somewhere else. So I'm actually from here, grew up on the South Side. Grew up good blue collar, humble beginnings. Was the first person in my family to graduate college. Did come from a kind of a little bit of a tough background. I grew up in and around violence, both inside and out of the home. And unfortunately, the worst happens to a young boy. Eventually, he becomes what he dislikes, and he becomes that bully. And so at 18 years old, I ended up committing a violent crime, and society, rightfully so, said, you know what, young man, we're going to punish you pretty hard on that. I was looking at 2 felonies, and luckily, by the grace of God and some good fortune, they were dropped to misdemeanors. Otherwise, my life, we probably would not be having this conversation.
Yeah.
So luckily, at 18 years old, I was sentenced to 2 years with 1 suspended and ended up spending my 19th birthday incarcerated. Decided to redo my life and transfer. Luckily, a male mentor appeared while I was incarcerated, one of the first positive male role models to appear in my life.
Was that someone through the system, or was that a family member that reached out and was like, hey, you need some help? Let me help.
It actually was not a family member. It was someone in the system. And what makes it even better, it was an African-American gentleman. And I don't know if you know anything about the system. You know, it's really clicked, and it's separated on racial lines. And for that gentleman to step in and step up to an 18-year-old boy, he had been in and out of the system his entire life, and to step across lines. And he saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself, and basically protected me, but also coached me and said, you're not going to get in this revolving door system. And that was one of the first positive role models to appear in my life. And so I was really thankful for that.
So
got out. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Oh, I was just curious, like, was he a counselor at the correctional facility?
Inmate.
That's even better.
Yeah.
You know, I like that better because it's more of a friend, an actual someone that you can actually relate to versus like, you're doing this because you have to. You know, like you don't really care about me, you know, like you're just getting a paycheck. So that's cool. I'm glad that it was an inmate and someone, especially, you know, African-American in Atlanta. I'm sure they have you're on this side and you're on that side, you know.
100%.
So
100%. And that was just so amazing for him to step across that line and see something in me and guide me, coach me, mentor me, and was one of the most guiding. It's still to this day, I'm just all that there was something bigger for me, I guess. And clearly there was. So here I am today.
Sure.
So dusted myself off, man, and end up going to work, listen to this, at a nuclear waste container factory, running a machine.
Nice.
Running a machine for $6 an hour and put myself through community college at night, and ended up at the University of Georgia, big Georgia Bulldog guy.
There you go.
And so I went from, believe it or not, man, I went from being incarcerated to the financial consulting and public accounting firm at Deloitte in 3 years. And that's pretty amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, quite the transformation, man.
How did you decide on finance? I mean, like, did you have an interest in it before, or did he kind of guide you and steer you in that direction?
I wish. I was a marketing major, a real estate major, and none of my buddies were getting jobs out of college because of the economy at the time. And I didn't have that option. I was financing my college and needed to have work when I got out. And so everybody was hiring public, accounting majors, and public accounting was booming, and Deloitte, Arthur Anderson's of the world, Price Waterhouse's of the world. So was fortunate enough to get in one of the big firms. And that started my professional career, man. And so that's what jail to Deloitte in 3 years is not too shabby.
No.
Yeah, no, that is not bad. Well, cool. So, so you mentioned, you went to jail early, but from that mistake, you learned a lot of lessons. And so, of course, meeting this male mentor obviously set you in a path. So let's maybe talk a little bit about the path you took. So, of course, you put yourself through school, you found success in a career sense, but where were you at sort of mentally, spiritually, physically, in all those sorts of categories?
So nowhere where I needed to be. How about that? And so
well, it's funny. We've had a number of people on who have gone into finance, especially like around some time in jail and things like that. And then in one example that I'm thinking of specifically, he began life as a finance guy and eventually went to jail for the work he did there.
Luckily, I did not have that happen. Yeah. Luckily, that did not happen to me.
Yeah.
And so, but with this guy, Michael, he, basically ended up going to prison, but like, that's what it took for him to change, right? I mean, he needed that experience. And then later he was able to connect with himself and sort of get right as a human. And, so I was just curious, how your story sort of went.
So what I just started chasing, I was that guy who never dealt with any of those wounds and demons from his past. And so I just buried them. And I thought if I just outworked you, out hustled you, out whatever maneuvered you, that I always thought that success, power, prestige, fame, and money were going to bring me happiness. Cause that's what I thought the dream was, right? As soon as I get there and have those things, then I'm going to be a happy, good guy. And so you fast forward about 14, 15 years, I was that guy. I was the principal in the firm, had the shiny car, the cufflinks, the tailored suit, the corner office, literally a corner glass office on the top of a building in Atlanta, making a lot of money. And I was miserable.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, I had become the bully again, but it was just a different type of bully. It wasn't using my hands as I did as a young man. It was using my intellect, my work, my drive. And I was just really, I was just wearing all these masks. I wasn't me. I was the tough guy, cool guy, important guy, I'll outwork you guy, but I was never really Tommy Breedlove. And so how that manifested with me is when I couldn't fill that hole with power, prestige, money, the next big conquest in business, I started reaching out to all the wrong things. And by 36 years old, there was 100 things not to do, brother. I'd probably checked off about 90 of them. And so, my marriage was crumbling. The armor was cracking, and I found myself yet another big moment. Here I am in a ditch in Atlanta looking at the blue sky. And probably a week before that, I was doing some $25 to $50 million mergers and acquisitions deal. And I'm like, how did I get here?
In a ditch looking at the sky, just wasted, passed out.
Yeah, totally. The next morning. Yep. Didn't know where a car was, didn't know where I was, looking at the sky and thinking, my God, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And so that was my aha moment. I was like, no more. Let's fix this.
I've had multiple stories similar to that, and I just don't learn. I've learned a little bit now, but I've been there. I've woken up to 4 police officers around me, like, "What are you doing? You wake up, buddy," or this or that, and it's kind of a sobering moment right there, realizing that you're, I can relate.
It's a tough moment too, and I don't know what it was at that moment, but that's when I'd had enough.
Yeah.
was like, I don't know what this is. This just isn't working. And so I don't know if it was that little boy who had everything in the world happen to him. He just says, like, get up and you got to live for both of us, right? That little boy that was deep down inside me. I don't know what it was. But I said, it's enough. And that's where I began some people call it, we'll say it's sexy. It was a spiritual transformation. Some people call it rock bottom. Some people call it rock bottom. We'll use some sort of technically cool word. And you know, I made my emotional, physical, spiritual, mental well-being my full-time job.
So
what was that's began me on this path. My first step, this is cool, man. My first step was my wife and I had been in and out of marriage counseling, clearly, because things weren't going well on that front. And one of the guys, it's two funny things. Well, one funny thing and then one serious thing. But one funny thing always happened when we went to marriage counselor. My wife's name's Heather, and they would about the third session, they'd say, Heather, you need to stay home. And Tommy, why don't you come back? You know, and the first
in-depth work with you.
the first few times I was like, they're going to tell me she's the problem, you know? And I'm like, but they saw something like some deep pain and wounds that I couldn't see in myself. And, you know, I had buried all that stuff. It's like it didn't happen. And one of those guys did the biggest favor for me. He goes, Tommy, I don't know what you're dealing with or why you're so closed and I literally couldn't feel guys. And they go, there's a place in Tennessee that can do more for you in 7 days than I can do in 10 years. And I never forgot him saying that. And I literally had that voice in my head when I was looking at that blue sky that morning thinking, my God, how did I get here? I mean, I was a big, you know, I was a big deal, you know, in the financial world. But here I am, you know, miserable, unhappy, lost, scared, and everything else. And so I went to that place in Tennessee, man. And I tell you, they cut me open and pulled me apart for 4 days. And what was cool, it was the first time in my life I thought that I was not alone. You know, I thought I was alone in my demons, my insecurities, my fears, the not good enoughs, the critic, you know, that voice in our head that tells us we're never going to be anything. And there was a rock star there was a CEO there, and there was a lot of normal Joes and girls just like me. And I realized we all have the same pain. And so that's my first step. And they spend 4 days cutting you apart and then 3 days putting you back together. And from there, I just drank from a personal development, self-development, self-mastery, mentors, coaches, masterminds, psychologists, you name it. I doubled down on it. And for the last 9 years, I've just made me my full-time job and investing myself. And that's how I turned it all around.
Yeah, no, I think, and it probably speaks a little bit to your character, you know, being a guy in finance and everything, that you were a driven personality, and maybe, you know, whatever your goal was, you were going to achieve, you know, whether it was going to school and then working your way through school, whether it was, you know, working your way up the chain at Deloitte, or whether it was, you know, fixing yourself. It seems like you've got a very driven personality that probably lends itself to, once you recognize that a course correction is needed, that you can just jump on it and go. How would you, I guess, what would you say to somebody who maybe doesn't have that driver or is missing the piece that allows them to go so hard on something? So, because I think that, you know, the experience you've had here, I think, as you discovered, you know, at this place in Tennessee, you know, it's not that uncommon. There's a lot of people going through these things, but I don't know that everybody has that little thing that you have. That's this ultra driven personality, this thing, you know. And I mean, you know, if it's rock stars and CEOs at this particular facility, maybe you guys have a lot of, you know, things in common mentally. But for people who are maybe, I don't know, I don't like to say weak, but, you know, people who are maybe a little softer or a little less capable of taking life by the horns, you know, yeah. How would you help guide somebody down a path not unlike yours?
Well, you don't have to be driven and ambitious and I really embrace the ambition and drive. And that's a lot of the guys that work with me. You know, a lot of guys that come see me to want to be better men, husbands, leaders, etc. Those are mostly ambitious, driven types to be better. But however, you don't have to have that. We all have on some level a deep, dark desire that we're not good enough. And on some level, we have a desire to be seen, heard, and loved. So it doesn't matter if you're an ambitious, driven alpha personality, or you're just, you know, you're more of an introvert and calm. What I would say to that is every single thing in life is a choice. And what I mean by that is no one's going to come and save you, and there's no magic pill to this thing called life. Mm-hmm. And you've got to participate in your own rescue. And doesn't require ambition or drive, but it has to be a burning desire to master our mindset, to develop unconditional love for ourselves, and to step in and step up and to be the person we were born to be. And it's a choice. It's a tough choice. It takes a lot of courage to look in the mirror and say, I want to be better. And I'm not in the business of changing people. I'm in the purpose and pain business, but I'm not in the business of changing people. I'm just in the business of getting them to realize who they were born to be, because that's what I did for myself. But I would say to those people, I mean, you've got to step in and step up. And if you're not happy or unfulfilled, or you find yourself looking at the sky and asking, why am I here? Or you're not where you need to be financially or business in your career, the only person that you can blame is yourself. I mean, and so you've got to look in the mirror and you've got to make the hard decision. Am I going to take action? And a lot of us can take action. A lot of us can start a lot of things, but we never finish. But are you going to take action? Are you going to continue to take action? And are you going to it's just like going to the gym. So if we don't go to the gym, we're going to gain weight, our muscles are going to atrophy. We're just not going to be physically optimal. The same goes with our mental, emotional, and spiritual muscles. We've got to work them every single day, just like going to the gym. And you got to step in and step up to be the best person that you can possibly be. And I'm a big believer, guys, that you have to step in, invest in yourself first, and love yourself first before you can go invest in others and serve others the best you can be. And so that's what I would tell those people.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. And I think it's also, good direction for folks. I know one of the things that people struggle with sometimes, and, maybe it shouldn't be the right motivator, but so many people get caught up in sort of the financial side of life. Like, I can't afford to take this time and invest in myself, because if I check out of work or if I check out of whatever, how do I pay the bills? How do we move forward? How do we keep things moving? And so, you come from a financial background, so I'm sure you're, financially literate. You're probably wise enough to save and put money away, things like that. How do you, I realize there's not going to be a quick, short answer or like a pill for this, but I mean, how do you help somebody in that situation where they're having trouble seeing the priorities and it's being driven by some other force, so it's being driven by either a financial need or a, things have always been this way kind of need, or whatever it is. Like, how do you shake somebody from that and allow them to see, or shuffle their priorities without being belly up in a ditch somewhere?
This is going to sound crazy. So, the financial part, it doesn't matter if you make $10 an hour or $10 million a year. That's actually the easiest part to fix, because you can get yourself education, mechanical stuff. You can get there's all sorts of tools I can give in your toolbox. The problem is to start the process and think about lottery winners. There's a reason 99.9% of them go broke within 6 months to a year of them getting the money. It's because they haven't worked on their money mindset, their spiritual mindset, their emotional mindset, and they don't actually believe, they don't have the tools, A, and B, they probably don't believe they're worthy of money. And so the first thing I would say on the first question is, if someone's in a financial situation, a tough financial situation, or they don't think they make enough money, or the second thing you said, this is the way it's got to be because it's always been that way. That is a mindset and a choice, and we've got to rewire that. And so there's free tools everywhere. Think about all the things on YouTube or online or documentaries or books. To me, and this is going to sound harsh, I think the people who don't read are no better than the people who can't. Mm-hmm. And so the actual best thing that you could do for yourself is invest in some self-development books, some self-improvement books, some mindset books, and also some business books. And read every single thing you can, because the library is free. And the more you rewire yourself, and eventually, if you read enough of those books, it starts to sink in and you start taking action. You start taking action with your finances. You take action with your emotions. You take actions with your mindset. You start to rewire all of the conditioning that was given to us from our parents, our society, our churches, our synagogues. We were wired the way we were wired because we were around the people we were around, and we can't do anything about that. But we can choose to change it. And you have to believe that you can be better than you were yesterday. And I know that sounds really, really harsh, but it's true. You can't blame society. You can't blame where you're from. I'm from the south side of Atlanta. I came from every form of violence and abuse you can name. My parents never made it out of, their mindset is, there's us versus them, and there's not enough money. And it was always a money scarcity. So I had to spend a significant amount of my time rewiring myself to money abundance. So there's all sorts of free tools in the toolbox for you to step in and step up to yourself. And when you're ready to start taking action on yourself financially, emotionally, mentally, then what'll happen is you'll start making different decisions, and your financial and happiness and other things will change. But it all starts with a choice to invest in yourself.
Yeah, I want to kind of reiterate on that a little bit too. Like I used to be just that guy, the one that didn't read. I could barely spell. I remember Ryan had to correct me because I didn't know the difference between ad and ad. So advertising and ad addition, and I would use ADD for advertising. You know, like I just didn't know. I didn't pay attention in high school, didn't do that. And then I'd say probably 3-4 years ago, I just kind of went on this I had a similar experience like you. I won't go down the details because that doesn't need to come out, but I kind of had an awakening and realized that I'm not doing things right, and I need to kind of change things. And I started listening to audiobooks and podcasts, and
huge.
It changes that. I mean, like the last audiobook that I got is something that I would never have even been interested in at the time. And it's like cognitive behavioral therapy is the
baby
book. And it's like a course, a college level course where the guy, they just recorded it, and it's a lecture. You know, I would never listen to a lecture on behavioral therapy, you know, before, but now I'm intrigued by it, and I find it interesting and fascinating. And the more you learn, the more you want to learn. And as you learn, you develop different mindsets, and it's important to always just stay open and aware and willing to change your perspective. And I just recently had a discussion with a younger kid that just getting into college and feeling like a failure because he flunked out of a few classes. And it was nice to, even though I don't have the college degree, I don't have the thing, but just sitting down and talking with him and saying, hey, it's going to come around. You're going to get there. You just have to keep working, keep studying, keep working on yourself.
Do the work.
I just really, you know, I want to, you know, elaborate on that a little more, just, you know, because you said it well, but I just wanted to reaffirm it, you know, because it really changes everything when your mindset changes.
100%. And mindset changes don't come overnight.
No,
it's a lifelong journey. We're never going to get there. And once we realize that, that's okay. But we've got to work on it our whole lives. I do want to say something because I don't want to be misinterpreted. I do need to say this. Anyone says that money's not important, you've got to run from them because they're broke, and you are the 5 people that you hang around with. And so money is super important, and it's also intimate as much as our health is. Sure. However, I will say this. I've got some clients that make probably $90,000 a year, and I've got some that make millions. And let me just put it to you, money will allow you to travel and experience things, and it also complicates things. And so it will not buy you happiness. It will buy you freedom, and it will buy you experiences and really cool, shiny things. But at the end of the day, there's a couple of guys that I work with that are literally, one of them's probably worth 25, 50 million bucks. I don't know the exact amount, but it's a lot of money. And he would give all of it back to have the appropriate relationship with his children, to undo some of the mistakes he's made and the choices that he made in order to have that much money. So I think money is super important. I think it's a mindset. I think it's a magnifying glass. I think if you're a jerk, it's going to magnify that jerkiness. But if you're about impact and positivity, it'll impact that as well. I think there's enough for everyone. And I think you can be as rich and powerful as you want to be. But if you do it at the expense of your core values, principle, purpose, soul, and at the expense of others, it's just a magnifying glass of badness. So it's important, though. I come from a money background, accounting and finance, and I love it. And I like all those shiny things. But at the end of the day, I know they don't buy us happiness.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a good point to kind of drill down on. I want to go back a little bit to what you were saying, though, about all these free resources and, there's a million toolkits and stuff like that. How do you help people, I guess, drill down or figure out where to start? So, because I think we live in a society that's sort of hyper, exposed. Like there's more content and more toolboxes and more whatever out there, but there's also a lot of crap out there. And so how would you help somebody sort of drill down? Like, I guess I mean, maybe the appropriate question is, how does a person find what it is they're actually looking for so that they can focus and, choose content appropriately?
And so that goes down to your purpose. So this is a core belief of mine. And the more I do this work, I've been in this work now really 45 years, but the actual work of the craft that I'm in now in mindset, relationship, business coaching for men and running masterminds. What I have found that I believe this I believe all human beings are put here for a reason. And I believe we all have a purpose, right? And so you're asking, how do you find what you're passionate at, what you're talented at, where do you want to go, and where do you start?
Yeah, it seems that if you're trying to, change your life, or if you're trying to get, kickstart a new direction in life, that you may want to, identify this purpose first, so as not to just thrash around for no reason for a long time.
So here's what your purpose is, and I hope, and help me if this isn't clear, I will try to make it as clear as possible. Your purpose is where your passions, and that's what lights you up. That's what you truly enjoy doing. It's where it's all the things that you love. Your passions and so it's where your passions meet your talents. And if you don't think you're talented, you're absolutely wrong. Mm-hmm. Everybody has some sort of hidden God-given talent, and maybe you need to find out what your true talent are. But deep down inside, you probably know what your talents are. And so it's where your passions meet your talents, which meets what the world needs. And so that's where your purpose lies. But so that's one of the things that you have to find. And that's one of my favorite things in the world to help people find is, what in this season of my life, and your purpose changes, by the way, over the season of your life. It just depends, it just changes, which is okay, which makes, that's why I think until our last breath, we all have a purpose here on earth. But here's what I would say is, first of all, you have to find where that is. And again, that's where your passions meet your talents, meet something you believe the world needs. The second thing I would absolutely recommend is you've got to come up with some sort of you've got to start developing unconditional love for yourself, which is very, very hard for us, especially in a world that promotes fear, envy, jealousy, and judgment. So our media is all about dividing us and also scaring us, because that's what sells. They want you to be a hardcore Democrat or a hardcore Republican, and it's us versus them, and we want to scare you. And so we've got to start developing tool sets and mindsets to block out all that noise. And then when we look on social media, that promotes the envy, jealousy, and judgment, right? Yeah. Everybody's perfect. Everybody's got their Instagram and Facebook moments. And so we've got to protect ourselves from that, because that's not reality. Neither one of those things are reality. So the easiest way, you've got to find your purpose, and there's books on it. You can hire a coach on it. There's all sorts of people to help you. Or you could just do what I just said. List your talents, list your passions, list what you think the world needs in the intersection of those three things of your purpose. But I would also say you've got to start developing unconditional love for yourself, and also start mastering your mindset to minimize that self-critic that says, what if they figure out I don't know what I'm doing? Or what if they find out my deepest, darkest desires, the what ifs and the shouldas that self-critic beats us up on. So it's a combination of finding your purpose, working on yourself unconditionally so that you love yourself, that you can go out and love and respect others, and also starting mastering your mindset. And there's tools, there's gratitude exercises, there's meditations, there's journaling, there's reading, there's books and podcasts and coaching. I mean, the list of resources and the freedom of those resources, and they're all free these days. That's what I would recommend to folks who are just at the beginning. And here's the thing too, you don't want to come in with a sword. You want to start small, baby steps, because it's like going to the gym. If you go in the gym on January 1 for 4 hours, you're going to burn out in 3 days. Mm-hmm. Just start by taking a 5-minute walk and do something. Just like my trainer, Julie Tubb, always says, just do something.
Well, the hardest part's getting to the gym in the first place.
That's right.
Putting your shoes on to go.
That's right. Second hardest part is going back and continuing to go back. And continuing to go back.
Well, hey, so let's talk a little bit more about this self-love component. This is something that even in my own life, I've struggled with quite a bit.
Everybody.
I did years ago have I guess 3 or 4 years ago, had kind of a person who was supposed to be helping me on sort of a diet and fitness kind of routine or regimen. But she also had this touch of sort of life coachy stuff, right? Because she sort of felt in her world, you can't really fix diet and any of that other stuff unless you sort of love yourself or you're into that. And I remember, I've still probably got it written down. I could probably find it, but there was the self-affirmation that she wanted me to do every day, stand up in front of the mirror, say something, to the extent
I'm
of
a sexy beast.
something kind of like that.
Hey, it works. Over time, it works, man. Over time, that stuff works.
But it was like, more to the effect of, I like myself. I'm happy with myself, no matter what I look like, whatever, blah, 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 right? There was some kind of phrase, a sentence that she wanted me to say. And it actually was sort of the undoing of my relationship with her, because I could not bring myself to lie to myself every day. Like, it felt like I was actually telling a actual lie to myself. And so because I was just so unwilling to say those words in front of this mirror, because I was looking myself in the eyes and lying. And so now I didn't do anything with it. I didn't figure out how to move past it, any of that stuff. Just it took the wind out of the sails of that relationship a little bit, right? So I wonder if you have any kind of, thoughts or ideas or whatever, how people can start discovering this thing. Because I think, like you said, coming from your background, my background's not near, as rough as yours, but I grew up with, just my mom, my dad died young, stuff like that. And so, I mean, I'm definitely not as troubled in that sense, but nonetheless, I'm definitely hanging on to some old baggage. And, so without just years of therapy, which might be the only solution for most people, but how do you set folks on a path? Not everybody can flit off to Tennessee for, take the week. And so I wonder if you have some, I hate to call them tips or tricks, but like, if there's some advice you could give that might help steer somebody down that path.
And you actually kind of hinted on one a little bit just before your question, the gratitude journal.
100%.
So that book that I'm listening to right now kind of breaks that down. Going in every day, write down 5 things that you're grateful for. And it kind of, it
rewires you.
Yeah.
So a couple things on that. The first thing that everyone has to realize, it doesn't matter if you're an average Joe like me, or you're Beyonce, or we all have our insecurities, our fears, and we ask ourselves, we don't believe we're good enough in some way. We're not sexy enough, cute enough, smart enough, skinny enough, you name it. We're just not enough. The thing that the key takeaway there is you're not alone in these thoughts, these insecurities, these fears. So that's first. And once we realize that, let's cut all I'll say the BS out. I was getting ready to say it. Okay, I didn't know. Some people get really offended by that.
We're in Wild West podcast land. Feel free to be all Southern Atlantan you like.
I was like, let's cut the bullshit and let's take off the mask, because we've all got those fears and insecurities. So the thing I would say to you guys, though, is you said something really powerful, but really, really prevalent. So we've made it uncool. I'm gonna come back to this. Therapy, to me, helps us deal with the wounds and demons from the past. Coaches, mentors, masterminds help us move forward. And what I mean by that is go into a direction with accountability, with goals, with, moving forward with that unconditional love, that self-respect. Therapy is about healing from the past, standing on it, and moving forward. So I think that's the difference between therapy and coaching. And I think both are super important and super powerful. And it doesn't matter what background you come from. We all got our wounds, scars, our demons, and our stuff. So that's what I'd say. The second thing you said is, it was interesting. You said, well, I just couldn't bring myself to the mirror and lie. Well, I think Saturday Night Live did a really big disservice to the world when it had that big joke and that big writing about that Stuart Smiley guy that says, "You are so worthy. You are so I love you." All that stuff. Do you remember that Saturday Night Live skit?
I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like it.
And people like me. You know what's crazy is the actors and writers at that time, like half of the actors and writers of those scripts are now dead via suicide and or have drank or drugged themselves to death. So the reason I bring all that up is, you're not lying to yourself, because deep down in your soul and in your blood and in your heart and in your system, you truly are good enough, worthy, lovable, deserving of everything good in the world. We've just made it uncool and unsexy to not do and say, to do those things. So here's the thing. You're not lying to yourself. You're just still letting others their expectations of being cool and your ego get in the way. And if what you're working's not doing, then manning up and I make alpha male dudes. And most of the guys I work with are very driven, very ambitious, and they are dudes. And I have every single one of them look into the mirror and tell themselves they love them. They don't have to say it out loud, but they're looking each other in the eye and tell them, because us males, we have a problem. We have a problem with receiving love, especially from ourselves. So I'll get to the tools and tactics in a second. But I have all of my guys do affirmations. I am so thankful and happy that goodness, love, abundance, wealth, success flow frequently, abundantly. I have them all do affirmations. They write it and they speak it. And some of these guys are zillionaires, man. Some of them are just regular dudes. So what happens is over time it rewires us. But the easiest thing that you can do to start cultivating presence, and that's a problem that all of us have if we're always living in the past or the future. We're always planning something or thinking about the past or regretting or scared. Gratitude, gets you in the present moment, and it makes you thankful for who you are and what you have. And so I have all of my guys do formal and informal gratitude practices, and the formal one is writing down 5 things that they're grateful for. And one of them has to be aimed at themselves. Telling yourself, thank you for doing something during this day that you did really well. And it could just be waking up and putting on your pants. It can literally be that simple. But usually it's something I have them list something about the gratitude in their life, their work, and for someone else. So I have them to list 3 to 5 things. And then I have them go back and read it silently. And this is what they do every single day. They go back and read it silently, and then they feel it. And so but over time, what happens is you start getting away from the fear and insecurity and more into love and abundance. And so gratitude is the easiest way, but I also have them throughout the day as they catch themselves being judgmental, angry, scared. You've got to start getting some self-awareness of when I don't feel like the way I'm not happy, I'm not content. That's when I have them stop, pause, they breathe, and then in their brain, they tell themselves something they're grateful for. And over time, it starts rewiring ourselves to where we start seeing the good in the world and not the bad in the world. So that's a very simple tool, but you've got to practice. It's a practice, just like going to the gym. You don't just say thank you one time and then I'm happy and fulfilled. And by the way, life happens, suffering happens. That's just a part of life. So we're not always going to be happy and joyful. We just want to be happy and joyful more than we're sad, angry, scared, etc. So that's one of the major tools in your toolbox that you can implement.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's hard to
change my life.
Yeah, when you're always looking at the negative, you're always going to be negative, and
so you'll attract it to you, man.
Yeah.
That's another tool, by the way, is you've got to eliminate the energy vampires out of your life.
Yes.
If you're hanging out with angry, judgmental, just people that bring you down, you're going to become those. And so it's okay to fire a friend or a family member. And it's okay to not have any friends or family member for a while. And as you do this work, you'll start attracting those other like-minded people who are seeking to grow, seeking to be better, seeking to make more money. You'll attract those into your life if you do this work. But if you're stuck in the mud and you got 5 really negative or judgmental or cynical people around you, you're going to be just like them and you're never going to go anywhere. And so that's just something that's a proven fact. This isn't just me up here disputing that. And so I just wanted to share that too. I'll stop talking. I'm passionate about this stuff, man.
No, I think that's important. It's one of those topics. It's the one example I use, quite a bit actually, is like, I'm not a particularly spiritual person, but every time I need work, I run an advertising agency, marketing company, and every time I need some work to come in, if I just sort of say it out loud almost, just tell a few people that I need some work, just kind of put it out into the universe, work 100%. Always appears, right? It always
100%.
And I don't necessarily attribute that to any kind of, spiritual being or whatever, but there's definitely something to it. This idea of just, mindset, inadvertently you're creating additional focus, you're sharing your information or your need with other people, so they're passing word along, and then stuff sort of just comes along. But so, I think that that's really evidence to what you're saying about mindset and how important it is to just sort of set yourself in the right spot. And almost just, even with these affirmations, sort of saying those things out loud, it just kind of puts it out into the universe. And then now the universe can do its work. The people that, sort of hear your message for, maybe not literally hearing it, but they're sort of getting your message through the way you're carrying yourself or whatever else. they're attracted to that. They're brought into that because that too is what they're looking for, or you're filling some void that they're missing, or whatever it is. And so I think that I guess maybe the word is intention, this idea of just sort of doing things purposefully and intentionally, and doing it in such a way that it, benefits your well-being and the other people around you, I think is probably, sort of evidence of what you're saying.
Well, and
100%.
It's also
Go
kind
ahead.
of like a mindset thing too, is if you're Debbie Downer and you're always this guy that everything you do is like, oh, woe is me, the government's
Victim.
You're a victim, and everyone's not going to want to be around you. They're not going to work with you. You're not going to dig out. It's just, it's self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're that guy, if you're an alcoholic and you hang out at a bar all day, you're going to drink. 100%.
So, yeah.
100%.
Yeah, no, I have to.
And it's energy, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
it's
have to
all
come
energy.
down on my kids about this all the time, because they're coming home and, oh, I hate school. Oh, I hate this. It's so stupid. Everybody's so mean to me. My teachers don't listen to me, blah, 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 and so it's all this all the time. And so I'm constantly coming down on them about that. Oh, how was school today? Best day ever? Awesome. Whatever, even though they're saying something else, I'm just, hearing it back as, oh, you had a great day. That's awesome. And, but I think I'm trying to effectively do what you're describing here, which is, try and reframe the way they see school. And
it's all a choice.
In yourself, you're trying to reframe the way that you see the world.
Yeah.
And it's all a choice. And we think we're in control and have power over it. The only thing we have power over is our choices, our mindset, and our attitude. And it's interesting. I didn't realize it till recently. And it's really, we're having, as coaches or mentors or parents or spouses, we're having to unwire a lot of stuff that's being thrown at us.
Mm-hmm.
And something's happened in our society. And I'm not going to go down a political rabbit hole, but both Democrats and Republicans. So I'll put all 100% of us in there. They are literally saying it's always someone else's fault. And B, you can have everything you want and you don't have to do anything to get it because I'm going to promise it to you. And that's a problem. So A, it's not always somebody else's fault. We got to look in the mirror and, participate in our own rescue. And B, no, nothing in life comes easy. The things that make us feel good in this moment now, 99.9% of them are really bad for you. And anything that's worth having and doing and building, like success and happiness and money and wealth and goodness and self-love, it takes work and time. And so we cater to the now generation. We have to undo that you can have anything you want and it's going to be free. And B, it's somebody else's fault. So we all have to undo that by doing this work.
Yeah. And on top of that, you can have anything you want right now.
Which is ridiculous.
Their mindset right now. It's the instant gratification that everyone wants. I'm a DJ, right? And I get these young kids coming up, play my song now, like plug my phone in, do this, do that, and it doesn't work that way. It's like you can wait like everyone else. And one of my favorite thing to do is just like tell them no and watch their face, like no one's ever told me no before.
Right, right.
It's the funniest thing, but
Totally, man. Totally.
Yeah, no. So I wonder if you couldn't go into a little bit more of, I guess, I mean, you called it energy, basically all this is energy. And so, but I think let's talk a little bit about what that really means. Maybe it is kind of what we've articulated already, this intention or this whatever, but I wonder if you could maybe talk a little bit about sort of what that is. I mean, it gets a little hippy dippy or a little kind of spiritual, but I like this idea of sort of, getting out what you put in. But it's not something you're saying or doing. It's some kind of this intangible thing that's coming off.
So every single thing, and let's go scientific. So we don't have to go mystical. We don't have to go religious. We can just let's go science. So every single thing in the universe is energy. If you look through a very powerful microscope at the desk, you're going to see right through it because you'll see the molecules, you'll see the electrons, protons. So everything is energy. Our thoughts are energy. Our emotions are energy. Our being's energy. When you have a lot of energy, when you don't have a lot of energy. And if you don't think everything's energy, look at a dead body compared to when it was alive. That is energy. You can call it whatever you want. Soul, spirit, it doesn't matter. I don't care what you call it. But everything is energy. And so, and everything has an equal and opposite reaction. So if you're constantly putting negative energy with your thoughts, your mindset, your attitude, victim or the worst thing in the world is victims and entitled people. And entitlement comes from the poor and the rich. I deserve everything, or I deserve everything. And so entitlement and victimhood are diseases, but they're also energy that you put out. And if you don't think energy is real, we can all relate to this. Think about that one person in your life that they don't have to say a word and they walk into a room and it literally, the air comes out of it. We all know exactly what we're talking about. There's that person in our lives. Yeah. They walk in the room and everybody's like, what the hell just happened? But there's also that person in your life. It could be an aunt, could be a grandparent, could be just a good friend. They walk into the and they are just happy. They're happy to see you. They genuinely care. And you just lift. You don't have to say anything. That's energy. And so what's weird is our brains only calculate at thousands per second. Our emotions in our heart calculates in millions per second. And that's why we buy emotionally. And that's why great marketers in advertising, they don't go at the brain, they go at the heart. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I mean by energy. And to take it a step further is science says every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The life part of it says like attracts like, dark attracts dark. So if you're putting love, energy, compassion, empathy, goodness, and you're doing the hard work to help yourself, that will get rewarded back to you in like kind. It just takes time and patience. Same thing happens if you're putting darkness out in the world. Darkness is going to come back to you, and that's the energy part of what I'm talking about. And so it's we can't explain it. We just know it's real, and we all know it's real on some level because we've all experienced it on some level.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think that's a good analogy. Let's talk, or to shift gears a little bit and talk about something that, maybe is something practical or sort of a takeaway that our listeners might get. One of the things that, I think it's sort of tangential to all the things we've been talking about is, time management, being able to stay organized and, get our stuff done. It seems like there's never enough time in the day. Can you talk about getting all this stuff done? I mean, it's really nice to have these ideas about, I want to take the time for myself. I want to do this and that or the other thing. But, it seems like there's just never enough time. God, if I take, this hour and go to the gym, how am I ever going to get my work done? Or, whatever it is. So I wonder if you had any thoughts on sort of time management, how you make time to actually facilitate all these things we've been talking about.
Probably my top 5 favorite topic, and we could do 25 shows on this. And so
Perfect.
Every single, here's the magic thing. The billionaire Richard Branson and you have the exact same thing in common. We both have 24 hours in the day. Some of us choose to set boundaries and prioritize the most important things of our day. And if you ever use the word "you're busy," that is code for something or someone else is in charge of your time and you're not in charge of your time. And what I mean by that, you might have to be at work for 8 or 10 hours. Okay. That might be your gig. I mean, you might have to do that right now, you might have to do that, but over time you will get to control your time if you start doing this work. So the first thing you've got to realize is no one has any more time than you or any less time than you, and no one's more busy than you or less busy than you. And busy is a disease. It means you're unproductive. So here's the second thing I would say is every moment of your time is a choice. And so there's no way you're working 24 hours a day. You're just not. And if you're choose to working all the time, that's a choice you've made. So maybe it's not an hour in the gym. Maybe it's only 20 minutes in the gym, 20 minutes doing the emotional work, and 20 minutes doing the middle work so that you can invest in yourself to be better than you were yesterday, so that then you can go serve your business, your family, your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever it is better. So every single moment of every single day is a choice. And I bet if we broke down 99.9% of the people in the world's time, there's going to be a whole, now I'm a big fan of fun and relaxation and whatever you got to do, go have a beer with your boys. I'm going to do that tonight at the Hawks game. However, I'm not going to do that every single night of my life. I'm going to choose to do other things. And so I would bet if we really dissected our lives and the time we waste binging on Netflix or doing truly things that just numb us, and if we step back and we chose to maybe spend an hour putting back into ourselves, your lives would change 100x over 365 days. That's what I would say to time management.
Yeah, time management. That's one thing. So like setting your timers on your social media on your phone,
100%,
15-minute limit or whatever. Micro, what are they? Micro goals or micro tasks. I was reading a book a few days ago, and the guy was talking about like, okay, so you hate cleaning the toilet, right? It's the least favorite thing you do. But if you set it up where, I shower 3-4 times a week. If you clean the toilet before you shower, that's your, you're goal stacking is what it was.
I love goal stacking. Yeah. That's
like,
a little more, that's more algebra than arithmetic, but I love it. It.
For example, you kind of just, you set your schedule up to where like, okay, if I'm cleaning the toilet, I do it every time before I shower. That was his kind of like, his go-to was like, it's filthy. No one wants to do it. But if you do it every time you shower, it stays cleaner and you're cleaning up at the same time. So it's kind of like you can set micro tasks and things like that where when you get your daily schedule or routine in order, it kind of just does it itself. And keeping the house clean, doing things that you don't like to do, it's a lot easier if you do small things over a period of time versus trying to, I gotta clean the whole house in one day.
Baby steps.
So
that's life too, by the way, is everything you've got to, if you come in with a hatchet or a sword and try to do everything at once, you're going to do nothing.
Yeah.
And you've got to take small baby steps, whether it's personal development, going to the gym, mastering our mindsets, cleaning, time management. It's all starts small, and you got to start small and dream big. Right.
Uh-huh.
And just start by doing something. And, time management it's a very detailed, and it's a case by case, but remember, it is a choice. And it's all about boundaries as well. We've got to know when to say no, and we've got to know when to say yes, and we've got to know when to say no and yes to ourselves. And by the way, you might have brought up a good point, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but our phones, our video games, our social media is designed to be addictive. And there are study after study now that, put your phone away for 2 hours and you will have the same withdrawal symptoms that a heroin addict has.
Yeah.
And that's because they designed them that way. And so it makes it even more difficult for us to put those things down, to quit numbing ourselves, so that we can take some time to spend working on us, because nothing's going to change if we don't decide to do something different than we're doing now.
So on that note, the notifications that you get is essentially like taking a sugar cube. You're
100%.
It's the same kind of thing. And have you ever gotten a text message and you said it, you don't look at it, you're driving or whatever, but it's like in the back of your mind, you want to grab your phone and look at it right now because you have that notification. It's that endorphins that are telling you to do
100%. And the sound it even trains you. It's just, we're the rats in the cage, right? When the ding goes off.
Yep. And that's what I was just going to say. Silence your phone. Ryan sent me a text yesterday, and I came in this morning like, sorry, bro, I totally I saw your message, but I never replied because.
Although I will say you said you were busy, so you're lying to yourself.
Well, did you see the amount of asphalt I loaded?
Busy's a choice, man. It is. That means somebody else or something else is dictating your time, period.
I wonder though, so just kind of while we're on that subject, one of those things that's in vogue right now is all these people pursuing sort of a work-life balance. This is the buzzword that's out there anyway. So maybe while we're talking organization, like in my mind, this idea of work-life balance is something you can achieve. It's not like a 50-50 thing. It's not there's not some attainable goal really in there, and so we're going after this, imperceptible thing, this work-life balance, but it's going to be different for every individual. So as you're
100%.
talking about, time management and taking control of your time, how would you, I guess, sort of respond to somebody that comes to you and says, hey man, God, Tommy, I can't, I need this work-life balance. I'm overworked and, I don't have enough time. How do I find this balance? What are your thoughts on that?
It depends on what their deepest, darkest desires are. If their deepest, darkest desires are, I want to spend more time with my children on the weekend, my children at night, or just hanging out with my boys, then that's going to come at the compromise of something else. And that's okay. I mean, if that's what really gives you enjoyment and fulfillment in life, that is A-okay. But if you're wanting to build a business or make X amount of dollars, that's a lot of dollars, you're going to have to compromise other things. So I think work-life balance is bullshit. And so what I mean by that, it's about prioritizing and reprioritizing. If your priority in this season of your life is to build a great podcast, business, career, get educated, you're going to have to rebalance your time to that. If yours is investing back in your wife, your kids, your significant other, or to more downtime, you need to balance your time to that. No, everything has consequences and repercussions. And so when you balance and rebalance, it comes at the expense. Because again, we only have 24 hours a day. It comes at the expense of something else. So you can't say, unless you win the lottery, nothing good comes in life without investing your time into it. And so there's no right or wrong reason. It's just what you desire. If you desire to have more time with your family and to work less, A-okay. You just have to prioritize that to that. And then you have to find a career, and you've got to quit putting credence into what other people think. So if I need to have shiny things or a big house or a certain car to feel good about myself, A, that doesn't last very long. But B, you can't say that I've got to spend more time. You've got to give up that lifestyle so that you can go spend more time with those people if that's what it costs. A lot of times it doesn't cost that. And so I'm a big fan of balancing and rebalancing depending on your priorities in life, because there really is no such thing as balance. It's just balancing and rebalancing is what I think.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I wanted to talk to you too. You've mentioned this a couple different times, but I wonder if it helps with, managing expectations maybe. So you mentioned the sort of the seasons of our lives. And so, and here at 45 years old, you've, lived the life of a young man, you overcame some real adversity, you lifted yourself up by the bootstraps and created this career and have now set yourself on the right path. Do you think you could have found this path without all that prior adversity? Like, do you think that part of it is just getting older? We've got these 25, 26-year-olds, these young people looking at Facebook, looking at Instagram. They're seeing everybody apparently has a yacht now and a Lamborghini.
and a Lamborghini.
So everybody's got one now. So why don't I, right? And so, so are we almost, and I think I suspect I know the answer, but are we setting ourselves up in such a way that we're going to beat ourselves down in our 20s and 30s, and by the time we're 40, we're able, maybe mentally, we've had enough life experience, everything else, that we can finally turn that corner? Like, do you think there was any way for you to have turned that corner, at a different time in your life, having not overcome what you've overcome?
It's hard for me to say. I think it's a case by case. I think you did say something very wise there. I think with age, we all, because of the natural suffering in life and job losses and death and pain and prioritizing what's really important to us, there's a reason our ancestors, and it didn't matter what continent you were from, that we really were guided by and listened to the elders, right? They were the people we went to for politics and wisdom and life, and they ran the, quote, tribes all over the world. We've lost that a little bit in our society. So with age comes wisdom, and that's because of the pain and the triumphs and tragedies of life. So I do think that happens. I think it's a case by case. I think if you grow up in a very loving household, and I don't think necessarily everyone has to be a phoenix rising from the ashes. In my situation, I wouldn't trade anything. I wouldn't trade being a senior partner and a board of director at a big financial firm. I wouldn't trade the mistakes I made as a young man, because it's made me the man. All I know is I can do me. And it took a lot of pain and finally saying enough is enough and making me my full-time job. I do know this. I do know everything on social media is just smoke and mirrors and noise. It's just noise. And we all like it. I love Instagram. I don't like Facebook, but I like Instagram. But I know the smoke and mirrors of not every night that 9 out of 10 people don't get out of a Lamborghini. They only make like 100 of them, but to start with. So let's just get real. And so we've putting all these kind of smoke and mirrors, and we're never really we're trying to put out something we're not, because we want to be seen, heard, and loved. And when you realize it's all nonsense, and that just be who you are and be great at who you are. And that goes again with investing yourself. So I do think with wisdom comes age. You asked me, do I think I could have done it? I don't know, because this is the only way I knew to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't put myself in someone else's shoes, but I think anyone can choose to change their situation and make themselves better.
Yeah, I like that.
I think we promote, though, instant fixes and the social media nonsense, and I think you're right on that. So I'll stop talking. But yes, I hope I answered your question.
Well, yeah, no, I think it's good, and maybe I'm just looking for affirmation myself. One of the things that I try and do is, every now and then when I have these moments where I feel beat down that I'm not as successful as I should be, or I'm not doing whatever I should be doing, or
He
whatever.
looks at me and smiles. He's like, I could be Mike.
No.
We all want to be like Mike. I want to be like Mike.
I have this little mantra, this little thing I started saying maybe a year ago or something, but it's basically, it took every decision I've ever made in my entire life to this moment. So right now, for example, me talking to you, Tommy, this couldn't have manifested through any other chain of events. The only way that I could have gotten to this conversation is by making every choice I've made, for good or for bad, for right or for wrong, for whatever it is. There was no other path. There was no straight line to get me to, an hour of Tommy's time. This was a meandering journey that took me through, all the ups and downs over the years. But by telling myself that, it allows me to kind of, I guess, forgive myself for not being where I think I should be or where society thinks I should be. And so I kind of wondered, I think some of that, at least in my situation, I think has to do with age. Like I've noticed I'm thinking a lot more about legacy. I've got a couple of young boys. I'm thinking a lot more about, what if I get hit by a truck? What happens for them? Stuff like that, 5 years ago weren't even on my radar. Even though I had young kids then, like younger kids then, like that just wasn't where my head was at. But now at this age, now I'm rethinking my business in such a way that, how do I redesign my company so that I'm not key to it? How do I redesign, different parts of my life so that if something happens to me, there's still a life for my family, that kind of thing. And so this little affirmation that I came up with came from that, so I just wondered if your experience was that, age kind of is the key factor. So even though we're young and we're busy, like these 20, 30-year-olds are busy chasing an answer, they'll get there, but it takes 20 or 30 years of work to arrive at where you're wise enough to even accept it.
I think it's a case by case, but I think the statistics would say that you were correct. But there's certain 20-year-olds that knock it out of the park and who come from loving families that have, been blessed with having a lot of wisdom bestowed on them. It just depends on what was given to us, which was really out of our control. So I love that. And you said something really powerful, is you switched your mindset from you to serving. When you talk about leaving a lasting legacy, that's a service mentality. When you talk about, I want to leave my boys better than I found them, that's a service mentality. And that's at the end of the day, that's really, we were put here on this earth to be a service to ourselves and something greater than ourselves. And so that's a really beautiful thing you said.
And when you can help someone rise to that next level, it's not that you're doing it to help yourself, but you are, when you see the rewards of the efforts that you put out to that person, and you see them succeed. If you can have your mindset be, you're trying to raise everyone, it changes everything.
Well, it's back to that
100%.
Concept of gratitude, right? I mean, by being grateful
100%.
and being helpful and by working for others, the byproduct is you're improved as a human being, but you're not doing it for you. That's the byproduct of doing good for others. So
always.
I think that's a great thing. So as we're starting to get to the end of this thing, I wonder if you couldn't talk about, and we started to get into this a little bit, but just if you've got some messaging or if you've got something that you'd like to share that's sort of like I'm listening to this podcast, I won't be able to afford my my cellular data next month, so this is the last podcast I'm going to listen to. I've hit rock bottom. I'm stoned while I'm listening to this, but I'm going to come back later. How do we help that person find their path, or how do we set them on the right set of rails? And we did dig into this a little bit, but I guess from having hit rock bottom, you were, I guess, blessed,
Twice.
lucky enough to have found
Twice.
Yeah, God, we didn't even really get into the second one that much, but you were able to find mentorship. You were able to find somebody that was there to help you. How would you encourage somebody that is at that point, belly up in the ditch again, like you were? What's step one? Okay, I've sobered up enough to make a decision now. Where do I go from here?
Step one is, remember the only power if you still have a breath in your body, it's not too late. The only time it becomes too late is when we're 6 feet under. And so if you've still got a breath in your lungs and we're fortunate enough to live one more day, you've got a decision to make. And decision all starts with choice. And what I would say is you have to choose. Again, no one came in and saved me. I was really lucky that a male mentor appeared in my life. But in the second transition, the second transformation, the second quote, rock bottom, that was all me. I was done. I had enough is enough, and I make the hard choice and the courageous choice to say enough is enough. Now, what do I do to go fix it? And it starts with participating in your own rescue. And so you've got to take a good, hard look in the mirror, and you've got to ask for help. And the first person you've got to ask for help is from you. And the second person, there's someone in your life who really wants to help you, and get help from them. I would say read every single thing you can get your hands on in the betterment, self-development, mental, emotional, and business space. It'll just eventually seep in. So it all starts with a choice. You're not alone. That's what I would also say. We've all have our wounds and mistakes and insecurities, and it doesn't even matter how big those mistakes are. And eventually they'll be something you can stand on because they're what makes you great. So know that you're not alone. Know that you must make the massive choice to be better than you are yesterday. And if I can do it, anyone can do it. And then ask for help. That's the hard thing to do. And then, hold yourself. I mean, you've got to look in the mirror. We've got to hold ourselves accountable. We can't blame society. Again, we've got to look in the mirror and take responsibility for our own lives, and take small baby steps. Could be like we talked about, a simple gratitude journal. Could be picking up a book. Could be getting yourself checked into a local help group. There's 1,000 resources out there. You've just got to choose to pick the one that's best for you, and you've got to do the hard work to be better. And it takes work. Otherwise, the alternative is death, man. Death or regret. And I don't know which is worse, regret or death, right? You want to look back on your life and say, I should have spent more time with family. I wish I would have chased that dream to be a painter, or I wish I'd have started that business. And shoulda, woulda, coulda is regret. That's even worse than probably just passing away. So this is your one precious short life. Go live it. And here's the thing. Every single person listening here all of us talking, we're all going to die. And so use that as a gift and know our time is, because if we were immortal and perfect, this life would be really boring because we'd have nothing to look forward to. And so use this one small precious time and be the best version of yourself and go out and do it. I mean, just go out and do it. So that's what I would say.
And I kind of want to add a little bit to the end of that is don't beat yourself up when you mess up, when you are in that ditch, when you are at that low of low, get over it. Because life goes on, and if you can kind of just let it go and focus on the positive, then your outlook is going to change.
And know we're harder on ourselves than anybody else will ever be on us.
You'll beat yourself up.
Anybody else worse than
I'll beat myself up over like, oh, I said this versus that, my grammar was wrong or whatever, and no one else will have even noticed it. And
that's right.
It's funny how that is.
I had one of my mentors always said this. He goes, Tommy, don't make fun of me. That's my job.
So Tommy, can I ask you, I mean, we're getting to the end of this thing, but can I ask you just one more question? We didn't really get into it throughout this thing. But I think it's maybe something, that, like you said, about time management could be 100 different shows. And so feel free to just scrape the top level of this. But I think that one of the things that's happening in this sort of, instant gratification, whatever society, one of the things that's going on is that, little boys and men are sort of, I don't want to say under attack, but like doing things that were once the way men did things. Or I know like with my boys, like they can't play football at school. They can't do, they can't wrestle and play around with each other. They can't do any of these things. I know a lot of your coaching effort has to do with working with men to be the best men they can become. And I wonder what your thoughts are about sort of the state of things, I mean, where it seems that we're trying really hard to make everybody the same instead of appreciating all the differences between the genders. And I wonder just if you had any sort of, parting shots or any thoughts on that sort of matter. Just
I have very, very strong opinions on that. So let me see how I can say this without
PC it.
Yeah, there is good reason, but all of these, do I think 99 out of 100 people are really good people? Yes. Do we make mistakes? Yes. We as a society like to really amplify and exploit and make something massive. So if 3 things happen out of 1,000, we're going to focus on the 3 and we're going to go all in on that. And we're trying to make everybody the same. And what happens with these social movements, and I'm talking both on the left and the right, it doesn't matter what, you've got a million of them out there is a lot of these social movements start with a really good idea and a change that needs to be made. And then they become the bullies that they hate. Mm-hmm. And they like to put everybody in a bucket. All men are bad. All this are bad. All these people are bad. And really, we're all pretty good. And so there is a movement out there to demasculate men. That there is a place for men and women. There's a place for all of us. We're not all the same. We're not even close to the same. We're all uniquely human beings. But I would say that we've got to be very careful of not extrapolating every single thing that happens on isolate. It's kind of like saying all businesses are bad. That is horseshit. And not all corporations are bad. There's a few people in a few corporations that make really bad decisions that affect a lot of people. Now, do we need to put things in place to protect us from that happening? Yes. But that doesn't mean all corporations and all business people and all people trying to better society are bad. It just means there's a few bad apples, and let's protect that. But we've got to be very careful of trying to put everybody in the box and everybody the same. We're not all equal. I will never be LeBron James. I don't care how hard I try. I'm just never going to be LeBron James, but he's also never going to be Tommy Breedlove. And so we're not all the same. We've got to be very, very careful of a society of becoming the bullies that we're trying to defend in whatever movements that we're doing. And I'll just leave it at that.
No, I think that's really smart. And I think that works for what I was trying to get at. I sort of, feel a little bit beat down by the state of things. And, every now and then it's, especially just because I have 2 boys. And so, every now and then it's something else with those guys, where they're just kind of doing what boys do. They wrestle, they roughhouse, whatever. And so, but now the consequences are real steep for doing that. So
which is silliness.
So instead of like embracing the differences, embracing the fact that girls play one way and boys play another way and other people play in other ways, we're pretending that there's not some biological factor here that makes these kids play this way.
That's right.
And so it's kind of frustrating, but I think the way you put it was really eloquent, and I think PC enough to air.
I was doing my best there.
I appreciate it, man. Cool. Well, hey, so Tommy, where can people find out more about you, get engaged with you, and learn more about your messaging? I know you do a lot of corporate speaking, things like that. How do people get in touch? Where can they learn more?
I'm really psyched. So TommyBreedlove.com. You can follow me on social media at Tommy Breedlove. We talked about social media because of the nature of my business. It's essential for my business. But TommyBreedlove.com. I'm super excited. We have we're publishing a book. We sent it to the final edit this week. It's been thousands of hours of time. Thank you.
Hit us up when it publishes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's called Legendary. And the reason I named it that, it's about building and living a legendary life. And it's about all the things we talked about, from financial freedom to time management, to mastery of our mindset, to unconditional self-love, to taking action, to goal setting. It's got all that in it. It's all the stuff that I teach. And the reason I called it Legendary is in a world where we like to self-promote, none of us are bold enough to call ourselves legends. And that is what's bestowed on us. Talk about leaving a legacy. Legendary is bestowed on us by others. Mm-hmm. And we will never be able to call ourselves that. And this isn't, there's good legends and there's bad legends. The good legends, MLK, Gandhi. I mean, the list is countless of people who've done amazing things. But there's also countless of bad legends. For every, Gandhi, there's a Saddam Hussein and Hitler. But this book's a playbook about building and living a legendary life through goodness, compassion, financial freedom, leadership. It's just about all the tools that I believe in. So I'm really, really excited about it. It looks like it's based on some of the things we're looking at with the publisher and marketing teams. It looks like it's going to be a bestseller as well. So I'm super excited about that. So anyway, related to that, look me up on TommyBreedlove.com. Know that book. It will be available here. The official published date is in February. We'll have copies in our hands here in the next month or two, and through our website. And finally, I have a one-page document if you want to, if you just email me at tommybreedlove.com, I'll send you the 1-page document. It's called Legendary Life, and it's how I live my life every single day, and it's 1 page.
Can you break that down real quick? I know we're running out of time, but
absolutely, brother.
I asked you about that earlier. Like, what's your normal routine?
So I have a daily routine every single morning. I meditate. I have a gratitude journal. I read. I walk my dog. There's some mantras that I do. There's a huge daily routine I have, and then all of that's in there. But it's also how I aspire to live my life, from eating to working out to serving to gratitude. All that stuff is in that 1-page document. And I also send you a blank one so that you can fill out one on your own. So it's a really cool thing to have. It was kind of cool. I went to a huge advertising firm recently, and it was hanging on the walls, and it's kind of wild to see that your life is hanging on a firm's walls. That was kind of humbling, and like, oh my God, that's legit. And so, yeah, I'm really excited. We got so many good things going on. Just visit me at tommybreedlove.com or email me at tommybreedlove.com, and I would love to hear from you. And you can even email me to tell you that everything I said is bullshit. I appreciate that too. I appreciate that too.
All right. Well, that sounds awesome. Well, Tommy, thanks so much for your time. Appreciate you making the effort to hang with us.
Of course.
And look forward to staying in touch, man. So you take care. Thanks so much. And everybody check him out, tommybreedlove.com, spelled just like it sounds. And we'll also make sure all the links and everything are everywhere else. So
sweet.
Great. All right. Thanks so much, Tommy. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, brother.